Welcome, Hudson Valley, to this week's edition of In Touch, the award-winning public affairs and issues program that runs across Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley radio stations. This week's guest is Carolina Schneider, MSRD, registered dietitian. We talk about the Farm Bill Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP for short, formerly known as food stamps. Together, we go into the stigma around SNAP and crucial nutritional gaps that need attention in order to enhance the nutritional offerings for all Americans. Most importantly, we discuss how voters can influence Congress to provide these necessities in the Farm Bill and beyond. We invite you to join us and listen to a previously recorded conversation between Carolina and myself here on In Touch. This past Friday, In Touch was officially awarded the 2023 New York State Broadcasters Association Award for Outstanding Public Affairs Programmer Series as part of the 57th Annual Excellence in Broadcasting Awards. It was such a surreal experience, and I'm grateful to represent the Hudson Valley in this way. This recognition would not be possible without the incredible team here at Townsquare, all our phenomenal guests that we learn from and grow with every single week, and of course you, the listener. Whether you've been listening for a while or you just found us, thank you for taking part in the conversation and staying in touch with what's going on in the Hudson Valley. We here at In Touch are all about, well, being in touch with what's going on in the Hudson Valley. What better way to stay in touch with what's going on than by downloading the Townsquare Media mobile app for this radio station? Not only can you listen to this station live at any time using the app, but you can also listen to In Touch on demand. Besides In Touch, you can read daily articles about news, events, entertainment, and more that's going on in your community. And when the weather gets bad, you can use the app to check on weather reports and see which schools and organizations may be closed. Your Townsquare Media app is also the best place for concert and event tickets. We are constantly giving away tickets to the hottest shows in the area. Again, you'll have access to all this if you just download the Townsquare Media mobile app for this radio station. In Touch is nothing without the support from the hundreds of listeners we get on a weekly basis. Thank you so much for listening and taking part in the conversation. If you listen to In Touch through a podcast service such as Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please consider leaving a positive review. With more 5-star reviews on these platforms, the algorithms will work harder to promote our show and bring In Touch to new people. That and also sharing In Touch with your friends and family is so important. Just sharing our links and listening live each Sunday goes such a long way. Thank you for all that you do to stay in touch with what's going on in the Hudson Valley. Hello, Hudson Valley. Thank you for listening to another episode of In Touch, Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley's award-winning public affairs and issues program. We have an incredible episode lined up for you guys today. I'm really excited about this one. Somebody who's really big on nutrition myself. I am really interested in learning on everything that our guest has to say and all the different programs that can potentially help people around the Hudson Valley and beyond. With us today, we got Carolina Schneider, MSRD, registered dietitian. She's also known as Carolina the Green RD. And she says the Farm Bill's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP for short, provides vital assistance to millions of disadvantaged Americans to ensure that all people have access to nutritious food. However, there are some crucial nutrition gaps that demand the attention of Congress that voters can elevate to advocate for an updated farm bill to improve SNAP and enhance the program's quality and nutritional offerings for all Americans. And of course, we are going to be highlighting stuff that's going on here in the Hudson Valley and how it impacts us. So, Carolina, thank you so much for being on In Touch. How are you doing today?
Hi, Connor. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing really good. I'm really excited to get into this. I know I've said that already, but it just shows how excited I truly am. And I think this is going to be great. And I think a lot of people in the Hudson Valley region are going to be able to benefit from this a lot. But one thing that I like to do with most episodes is give like a little bit of the overview of what we have going on and who we're talking with and everything. So we're going to be focusing a lot on the Farm Bill and SNAP. So could we start off, please, with what is SNAP and how does this Farm Bill program influence nutrition choices for families?
Absolutely. So, Connor, SNAP, as you mentioned earlier, is Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It's what people used to know as food stamps. So the name was changed, but it's essentially the same concept. And the Farm Bill gets renewed every 5 years, and it's up to be updated now, actually, in the next week or so, now end of September. And the relationship is, so the Farm Bill essentially includes provisions for nutrition assistance programs such as SNAP. Any changes to the Farm Bill in itself can truly affect, the funding, the eligibility criteria, even the program structure when it comes to SNAP. So the Farm Bill, all in all, can either promote or hinder the development of our local and regional food systems. And most importantly, it really determines how much access people have to, fresh, locally sourced foods and the health of the diet, of Americans. So how much access people have to nutritious food. So, some people may think, oh, the Farm Bill is just for farmers, that I hear that all the time, but no, actually, it's so much more than that.
I'm sure that it is. And one thing that I can say about the Hudson Valley region, we are very blessed and lucky to have so many farmers markets, orchards, various places that people can get fresh produce all around here. So it's a very integral part of our community, economy, ecosystem, and everything along those lines. So I'm sure that this will affect all of us here immediately. I think we will feel every little bit that has to do with it. So now, why is the Farm Bill something that we should be concerned about when it comes to our nutrition? What exactly, or a few examples, could really impact the way that people could be eating then?
Yeah, so, with SNAP, currently people have access to fresh foods, like you mentioned. And I know I've been in Hudson Valley. I know there's so many great farmers market and, local produce and fresh produce. So the good thing about SNAP is that currently it allows people to purchase these fresh, wholesome foods that are good for us and support our health. The not so great thing is that, on the other hand, it also gives access to processed foods. So think about if you're walking to a convenience store, people can use their SNAP benefits to purchase essentially any food item, including candy, chips, etc. So, thinking about other regions of the U.S. where perhaps fresh produce is not as accessible, what do you think people are doing with their SNAP benefits? They're getting, they're using it to whatever is easier and accessible to them, right? So remember, not all of us, unfortunately, have access to great nutritious foods. One thing with this program that, I wanted to talk to you today, Connor, is that I think we could really make it better. And this is where the Farm Bill comes in. We can make SNAP more inclusive and well-developed in a way that we can give incentives or at least more awareness for beneficiaries to choose better food options. So, hey, you have access to all these options, but here are the ones you should prioritize, your wholesome, real foods that will benefit, the health of your family. So that's one thing I think when we're talking about the Farm Bill, changes such as this could really bring on, so much more awareness to the people who are benefiting from SNAP. And, on top of these great fresh foods that they have access to, unfortunately, the SNAP program does not give access to vitamin supplementation. And Connor, I'm the first one to say as a dietitian that, hey, let's get all of our nutrients from food, food first. That's 100% what I stand by. But unfortunately, I am the living proof that this doesn't always work. So, there are some vitamins and minerals that we are more likely to be deficient in. Some, such as vitamin D, for example, that most of us are deficient. And unfortunately, we just simply cannot eat our way to adequate vitamin D levels because it's not as abundant in food sources. So that's another thing I wanted to discuss with you today and your listeners, is giving access to supplementation for the SNAP beneficiaries.
Absolutely. Very interesting thing about vitamin D. I've heard a lot about it, how a number of people need it. And I know it's a very important supplement, a very important vitamin, of course. I'm just curious, though, is it more of an awareness that we are in need of it, or has there been kind of a bit of a cultural shift where we are in need of it more? I know vitamin D, a lot of it comes from the sun. Are we shut in more? Are we not exposing ourselves to the sun more? Are we not getting it into the food? Could you give us like a few leading examples as to why Americans are not getting the proper amount of vitamin D?
Absolutely. So you are spot on that, the best source of vitamin D is sun exposure. So when we're exposed to the sun, our body can produce vitamin D. Now, what's happening nowadays, a few things, Connor. So one, sun exposure can be impractical in a way. So think about your dermatologist, when you go to the doctor and they're telling you to wear sunscreen, to stay indoors, to avoid, excessive sun exposure. So all in all, we are spending more time out indoors. We work from home or we work from an office. When we're outside, we're told to wear sunscreen. So not saying these things are bad in any way, but they are giving us less exposure to sunlight. And then think about, certain regions of the world, geographically speaking, have less sun exposure. They have, shorter summers. There's different, culture practices around being outdoors. Also, we have a few other, beyond all of these reasons, we have people with, let's say, dietary restrictions who are not getting vitamin D sources, which I'll touch on in a second when we're talking about food sources of vitamin D. But also, Connor, people of color, they actually produce less vitamin D. So
really,
there's so many. So due to the melanin in their skin, that actually can hinder vitamin D absorption and production. So they, in general, already produce less vitamin D. And then, we have obviously the all malabsorption issues that people are experiencing in their GI tract. So gastrointestinal conditions that prevent vitamin absorption or production. So there are many, many reasons why we are simply not getting enough vitamin D that are beyond food, right? So the sun exposure, geographically speaking, we have the people of color who naturally produce less, and we have people with GI conditions that may not be, as efficiently producing vitamin D. Now, when we're talking about food sources, that's probably your next question is, okay, well, can we get it from food? And the short answer is absolutely. There are vitamin D food sources, such as fatty fish. So think about salmon, the mackerel. We have egg yolks, which are great sources of vitamin D. We have fortified dairy products, milk, yogurt, etc. Now, even though these foods do have vitamin D, what we've learned in recent years from research is that even the people who are consuming these foods are still low or deficient in vitamin D. So it's a matter of, they have added vitamin D, but they perhaps are not providing us with, enough, or we're not consuming these foods enough, or we're not able to convert, the vitamin D or absorb it efficiently from these food sources. So even if you're eating these foods, you can still be deficient in vitamin D. Now, another part of this is think about the people with dietary restrictions or who choose to not consume, let's say, animal products like myself. I follow a plant-based diet, so I'm actually not consuming any of these foods that I just mentioned.
I was going to say, that was like red flag, check box. I was like, wait a second. Nope, that takes some people out. It's like seafood allergies, dairy allergies. I'm just thinking about it when you're saying it was like, oh, shoot.
Exactly. So whether it's due to an allergy or it is, your choice to not consume animal products, let's say, whatever the reason is, many people are not even consuming these foods. So for all of these reasons, we're seeing that, unfortunately, most of us, about 42% of the population, of the U.S. population, are deficient in vitamin D. So I am a living proof. I was deficient for several years without knowing. And this is why I always advocate for people to go to their doctors at least once a year, your primary care physician, and, do your blood work, the full panel, ask for vitamin D in case it's not included, and do that at least once a year so that because really the best way to know if you are deficient in a vitamin or mineral is through blood work. Because sometimes we don't feel the symptoms.
That's something I want to touch on in just 1 second. Again, you are listening to In Touch, Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley's award-winning public affairs and issues program. We are speaking with Carolina Schneider, and we are talking about SNAP and the upcoming recent farm bill and how people can get the most out of the food through these programs and just in general about the supplements that we need. And we've been talking about vitamin D in particular. It's one of the most important vitamins that we need. We typically get it from the sun. We can get it from food. But with current culture of just constantly being inside, away from the sun, and also dietary restrictions, it makes getting vitamin D very tough. And one thing that I wanted to bring up, you said go to your doctor, get checked out, the blood work and everything. And you said sometimes there may or may not be symptoms, but how might we be able to tell, is there enough symptoms where somebody might be like, oh shoot, I'm feeling a certain way, I should get this checked out? What would we see from a person who is vitamin D deficient?
Great question. So the most common symptom that you may experience is extreme fatigue, but that is also the symptom for several other deficiencies, such as, an iron deficiency. That's also the first thing you will feel. So just to give a little bit of context to your listeners, vitamin D plays a crucial role in supporting your immune system. That is the main, it's got many other roles in our body, but definitely supporting your immune system is a big one. And what we may experience that, as a severe deficiency is illness, right?
Yeah.
So respiratory infections is one that we see a lot when people are vitamin D deficient. We learned that in recent years, through the pandemic. We've seen that people who were lower in vitamin D, had lower vitamin D levels in their blood, were more susceptible to COVID and other respiratory illnesses. People may experience, mood changes, muscle weakness, joint pain. Another thing I've seen is, hair loss. In the long term, you can experience bone loss, which you wouldn't really know unless you're getting, the DEXA scan for your bone density, or if you're, falling, if you're old, elderly people who are falling and breaking their hips, right? That could be in itself a deficiency of vitamin D or calcium. So it really plays many roles. Muscle cramps is the one that I've seen before. So the thing is, Connor, we really don't want it to get to that point. So if you're getting to a point where you're experiencing symptoms, it's already an issue. So, to prevent that, just getting your blood work every year, once a year. If you're deficient, your primary care physician will prescribe, vitamin D supplementation in the form of D3, which is the most active form. And the dosage really varies depending on how, severe your deficiency is. And that's pretty actually easy to kind of catch up. You do this, you take the supplementation for, X amount of months, depending on your case, and you can get your levels up, which is pretty great. But then you need to keep monitoring that over the years, Connor. But I know one thing I wanted to mention, people may be wondering, well, just how important is vitamin D and having adequate levels? Well, we've seen in research that having adequate levels of vitamin D lower your risk of preterm birth, so women who are pregnant, by 60%, which is
that's significant.
A huge number. Yeah, preterm birth is just such a common, issue that we experience here in the U.S. It can also lower the risk for depression, asthma, some types of cancer, even, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and the respiratory infections that I mentioned earlier. So it's pretty important.
Absolutely. It's very important. And getting back to SNAP and how we could possibly get this, all united and get things improved. Before we even get into the ways that Congress and the way that voters can influence how supplements and more nutritional foods can get into the Farm Bill, I do want to bring up one thing. The SNAP program was once food stamps. And growing up, when I heard of food stamps, there was almost a negative connotation. It's like, they're on food stamps. And that was kind of the way that I would see other people around me as I grew up. And I feel like there's, the stigma around it. So could you get into how many people participate in SNAP and why it shouldn't be so stigmatized, and why it should be is no, this is an important program that could help so many people. Take advantage. No, don't listen to these naysayers. Could you please get into that a little bit?
Absolutely, Connor. So about 41 million Americans participate in SNAP. And, I'm glad you brought this up because I definitely have heard, kind of that stigma, I've seen it before. And I've met so many people who are SNAP beneficiaries, working in the community. These people have jobs. They have families. They're working 1 to 2 jobs a day. They're really trying, but the cost of living in the U.S., especially in certain states, is really high. So even though these people are in the workforce, they're simply not making enough to feed their families. So it's not like people are just sitting around using these benefits. I think, I've heard that so many times before, just taking advantage of the system. Absolutely not. These people are in the workforce. They're, trying everything they can, and they simply cannot make ends meet. So it is so essential that we support this program. So about 42 million Americans participate in SNAP. About 70% of those are families with children. In New York, about 2 million to almost 3 million New York residents benefit from SNAP, which is about 14% of the state population. So 1 in 7 people. So it's actually, it's a pretty high number. In New York, about 53% of these participants are families with children. So we're talking about Americans, we're talking about their children as well. So this is why, we want to make it as well thought out as we can, the program, so that these people at least have the option, to, purchase healthy foods, but also their vitamin D supplementation in case they are deficient. Because think about it, if you're on their, in their place and you can barely have enough money to pay rent and feed your family, how likely are you to spend that money on a vitamin supplementation, right?
Very little.
Probably not likely.
Yeah.
Very little. You're going to buy some bread and cheese or whatever it is to feed your family. So this is why I am so passionate about this, because I know this is not what people would spend their money if they don't have it. So making vitamin D a part of their benefits so they can use that SNAP benefit to buy the vitamin D supplementation, for me, is so important.
Absolutely. And I think this last part here that we really want to get into is how people can get involved in making things even better. Again, you're listening to In Touch, Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley's Public Affairs and Issues program. We're speaking with Carolina Schneider, and we're talking about SNAP, the Farm Bill program, and ways that people can take care of themselves and how they can look into getting the best vitamins, minerals, nutrients that they possibly can out of their food. And we've been also talking about some of the stigma surrounding SNAP, and just telling people is like, no, we are all in this together. As Americans, we are struggling, and the numbers that Carolina was sharing, they're staggering. They are big numbers. This is not just a small population of people. This is a decent amount of people out there who need this. And a lot of what we're talking about, whether you're on the SNAP program or not, still affects you. Nutrition affects all of us. Mm-hmm. So as we get towards the end of this episode, I think what we need to talk about now is how Congress can make the SNAP program more nutritious, and how voters can play a part in making Congress do that. Absolutely. So as we talked about earlier, one way that Congress can make SNAP better for beneficiaries is to add vitamin D supplementation just as an option for people if they need to purchase that. And that actually wouldn't cost the program anything. So it's not like we're asking for much here in terms of, the budgeting. How we can help, Connor, today, it's actually very, very easy. You can reach out to your local Congress official representative. I will give you the easy step to do that, to really like a shortcut. All you have to do is go to this website, allforvitamind.org. That's allforvitamind.org. This great nonprofit organization called Organic and Natural Health Association has done all the work for us. They've actually written a letter to Congress asking to get vitamin D supplementation into SNAP. And all you have to do, you go to the tab that says Take Action, enter your name and your zip code, and the letter is right there for you. And all you have to do is press send. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes. You're welcome to modify the letter if you like, but if you want to do the minimum work, you just put your zip code and send that in. And again, this is up for renewal in about a week or so, end of September. So it's really great if we could get as many people as possible to help,
SNAP beneficiaries and our fellow Americans.
Absolutely. And that's so easy to go off and do. 2 to 3 minutes of your time, that is nothing. 2 to 3 minutes of your time that could potentially benefit the rest of your life. I think that's worth it right there, personally. Carolina, this has been an incredible episode, and we really appreciate everything that you had to say. You've already given us the information about contacting Congress, but could you tell us where people can find information on SNAP, and also where people can find information on you and follow you and everything that you do as a dietitian?
Absolutely, Connor. So when it comes to SNAP, you can find more information on the USDA website, part of the United States Department of Agriculture. You can find, actually, we didn't talk about this, we can talk about next time, but people can find where they can shop at SNAP, local independent grocers, natural product stores. I know in Hudson Valley you have a lot of those. So people can go online and find a directory of where they can shop for healthy foods. But other than that, you can find me on Instagram at Carolina the Green RD, and I share lots of healthy, yummy recipes there if you're interested.
Oh, that sounds great. I'm definitely going to have to follow because I love to cook. So I'm going to probably be learning a few things from you there. So that's fantastic. And of course, to all you listening, all links and information will be in the description of this episode. So if you didn't catch a few of those things, don't worry. Just go online. We got it all for you under the In Touch tabs on all of our station apps and websites. Of course, don't forget to listen to us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcast. It's so simple. Just like it is so simple to get involved with the Farm Bill program. Carolina, again, thank you so much for being here on In Touch. I really appreciate all your perspective and expertise on this topic.
Thank you so much for having me, Connor. It was a pleasure.
This has been this week's edition of In Touch, the award-winning public affairs and issues program that runs across Townsquare Media of the Hudson Valley radio stations. We want to give a big thank you to Carolina Schneider. For more on Carolina, you can check out her Instagram page, which is at Carolina the Green RD. We also got the links for the USDA, SNAP, and Organic and Natural Health Associations, all for Vitamin D campaign, in the description of this episode. Whether you've been listening for a while or you just joined us, thank you. You can find In Touch episodes new and old on your favorite streaming services like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. That and listen on demand with your Townsquare radio station mobile app. Of course, you can still find all articles and audio under the In Touch tab on this radio station's app and website. And don't forget, we're also on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at InTouch_HV. If you like what we do here on In Touch and want to be on the show, let us know. Whether you have a topic you want discussed or you want to be a guest, the best way to contact us is through our office number, 845-471-1500, or email direct to connor.walsh@townsquaremedia.com. I've been your host, Connor Walsh. Until next time, stay curious, keep an open mind, and as always, I'm glad we get to spend some time.